The Young and the Restless. Daniel and Sharon cozy up, and Phyllis rages. In Genoa City, drama never takes a backseat, and this week's events have left viewers gripping their seats in anticipation. The unexpected closeness between Daniel Romalotti and Sharon Newman has set the stage for a whirlwind of emotions, and, as always, Phyllis Summers is caught right in the middle of it all, seething with jealousy and anger. As the tangled web of relationships unfolds, each character faces dilemmas, revelations, and challenges that will forever alter the course of their lives. The growing connection between Daniel and Sharon. It all began with the faintest of gestures, a quiet conversation in the Newman Ranch kitchen. Daniel, who had returned to Genoa City after years of wandering, was in town to visit his daughter, Lucy. As an artist, Daniel always had a unique perspective on life, one that didn't always fit into the tidy boxes that Genoa City residents tended to prefer. Sharon, meanwhile, was in the midst of an emotional rebound, still reeling from her past with Nick and her tumultuous history with the Abbott family. Though she had always been fiercely independent, she couldn't help but feel a pull towards Daniel, whose world seemed less predictable, more adventurous than the routine she had built in her life. The connection between Daniel and Sharon was easy, natural even. Sharon, with her open heart and empathetic nature, found herself drawn to Daniel's creativity and depth. She had always admired how he was able to pour his soul into his art, a trait that resonated with her own desire for expression and healing. On the other hand, Daniel saw in Sharon a woman who was not only kind and nurturing but also someone who understood the chaos of life, someone who had suffered and come out the other side stronger for it. Their conversations, at first casual, became more meaningful. Daniel found himself confiding in Sharon in ways he hadn't with anyone else. The pain of losing his daughter Lucy, the years spent in self-imposed exile, and his feelings of being misunderstood, Sharon listened without judgment. She encouraged him to explore his emotions through his artwork, seeing a quiet artist's brilliance in him that no one had fully appreciated before. In turn, Sharon began to feel the warmth of Daniel's companionship in a way she hadn't experienced since her relationship with Nick began to unravel. He was calm, centered, and seemed to offer her the type of peace that she had longed for. As their friendship deepened, there was an undeniable chemistry building between them, a spark that neither one could easily deny. Sharon, ever cautious after the many failed relationships in her life, hesitated. But there was something undeniable in Daniel's gaze, something that promised new beginnings. Phyllis's growing anger. But while Sharon and Daniel were forging a new connection, Phyllis was far from pleased. Phyllis Summers, as bold and fiery as ever, had always had a reputation for being fiercely protective of her loved ones, especially when it came to Daniel, her daughter Summer, and her tumultuous relationship with Jack Abbott. But lately, Phyllis had been fixated on Daniel's growing closeness with Sharon. Phyllis and Sharon had never exactly been best friends. Sharon had always been a threat to Phyllis's sense of control, especially when it came to her family. Sharon's calm, patient demeanor and unwavering ability to remain composed under pressure only seemed to irritate Phyllis more, who believed in taking action and making her voice heard. And with Daniel and Sharon becoming closer, Phyllis couldn't help but feel a sense of dread, a fear that she was losing control of the situation and, worse yet, that Sharon was yet again slipping in to take what she perceived as hers. The idea of Sharon and Daniel becoming more than just friends seemed to trigger something deep inside Phyllis. It wasn't just jealousy, it was something more, something that spoke to Phyllis's deep-seated fear of being replaced, a fear she had battled throughout her life. Sharon was everything Phyllis was not: gentle, composed, and empathetic, and that struck Phyllis to her core. As the days passed, Phyllis's anger boiled over. She would catch glimpses of Daniel and Sharon together, their laughter echoing in the air, and it would send a jolt of irritation through her. When she saw Daniel and Sharon sharing an intimate conversation at Crimson Lights, her usual composed demeanor shattered. Her voice, once soft and sultry, now had a biting edge to it as she confronted Daniel. "Really, Daniel," Phyllis snapped, storming over to their table, her heels clicking against the floor. You think this is a good idea? Sharon, of all people. Daniel looked up at Phyllis, startled by her sudden confrontation. Phyllis, we're just talking. Nothing more. But Phyllis wasn't convinced. Talking. That's what they're calling it these days. Her voice dripped with sarcasm. You know what she's like, right? The last thing you need is to get involved with her. Sharon is a walking disaster. Sharon, sitting quietly, knew that Phyllis was deliberately poking at her vulnerabilities. But she refused to back down. We're adults, Phyllis. If Daniel and I want to talk or spend time together, it's none of your business. Phyllis's expression darkened as she turned her full attention to Sharon. Oh, believe me, it's very much my business. You're not going to worm your way into Daniel's life, not without a fight. The consequences of Phyllis's rage. As Phyllis's jealousy began to spiral out of control, she didn't just attack Sharon verbally. She started meddling in Daniel's life in more subtle ways, planting seeds of doubt, making sure to remind him of Sharon's past mistakes, and trying to undermine her efforts at every turn. Phyllis even went so far as to warn Daniel that getting involved with Sharon would only lead to heartache, citing Sharon's failed relationships and emotional instability. But Daniel was no stranger to Phyllis's tactics. He knew how she operated, and he wasn't about to let her control him. Still, the pressure was mounting. He had always found himself caught between his loyalty to his family and his desire for independence. Phyllis's venomous words echoed in his mind, even as he tried to shut them out. It wasn't just Phyllis's concern for his well-being that bothered him, it was her underlying need to manipulate, to control the people in her life. It was a game he was tired of playing. Meanwhile, Sharon was trying to stay above the fray. She wasn't interested in a battle with Phyllis, she never had been. But the tension was undeniable. Sharon, who had spent so much of her life trying to mend broken relationships, now found herself facing off against Phyllis in a way she never had before. The animosity was thick, but Sharon knew she had to stay grounded, especially for her own peace of mind and Daniel's sanity. The moment of truth. The tipping point came one fateful night, when Daniel and Sharon were having dinner at the Newman Ranch. It was meant to be a quiet evening, a peaceful escape from the chaos of their respective lives. But Phyllis was determined to ruin it. She stormed into the room, her face twisted with anger, eyes narrowed. I warned you, Sharon, Phyllis spat, her voice seething with contempt. But I'll make it clear again. Stay away from Daniel. You have no place in his life. Daniel stood up, his anger flaring. That's enough, Phyllis. You don't get to tell me who I can or can't talk to. I'm not a child. Sharon stood beside him, her voice calm but firm. Phyllis, you're not going to control me or Daniel. We're both adults, and we've made our own decisions. For a moment, the air crackled with tension. Phyllis's face was red with fury, her chest rising and falling with each heavy breath. But in that moment, something inside her shifted. Perhaps it was the realization that her attempts to control everyone around her were futile. Perhaps it was the crushing weight of her own insecurities. She didn't say another word. She turned and walked out, the door slamming behind her. The aftermath. In the silence that followed, Sharon and Daniel shared a look of mutual understanding and recognition. It wasn't just about the confrontation with Phyllis, it was about the bond they had created, something that had endured despite the chaos and drama swirling around them. For now, they knew they had something real, something worth holding onto. As for Phyllis, her rage didn't dissipate. It simmered, dark and unresolved. But for the first time, she realized that she couldn't control everyone, and that realization left her even more dangerous than before. In the coming weeks, Genoa City would see her unleash a new set of tactics, ones designed to keep Daniel and Sharon apart, no matter what it took.